वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome to this fifth session of Gita Jayanti celebration. Our teachers led by Dr. Timma Pegde sir are ready with next set of 6 selected shlokas from 4th chapter Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga. Today, after study of Gita shlokas, Srimati Aruna Raval will explain the meaning of a beautiful Saraswati Stotra, Yakundendu Tushara Hara Davala. Srimati Smita and Srimati Nilima will chant shlokas 1 to 20 of chapter 5 at the end of our session. Now, let's get on with the study of Gita shlokas. Hegde sir, please.
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Prapanna Parijataya, Totra Vetreka Panaye, Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya, Gitamruta Duhe Namaha. Continuing our Gita Jayanti celebration, which is in the form of a particular verse allotted to each one of us, where we internalize the meaning of this verse. Now we have selected all the verses from the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita with the theme of Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, and to be able to share it with the group. The 4th chapter has a number of topics, but in this session today, we will be selecting topics or verses related to the avatara, about Jnana Karma Sannyasa, and about the importance of the teacher and how the means of acquiring Jnana. We will begin with Dr. Vasumati. Dr. Vasumati, please, on the avatara.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Avatara is Lord's incarnation. It is a unique concept in Vedic tradition. Avatara is different from human birth. When a human being is born, we call it birth or Janma. But when the Lord appears in creation, we call it Avatara. There are a lot of differences between Janma and Avatara. Firstly, Karana Bheda, as we can see in the slide. The very cause of Manushya Janma and Ishvara Avatara are different. In the case of the birth of a jiva, as we can see in the next slide, it is caused by ignorance, avidya. Because of ignorance, the jiva has got the problem of ego. And because of ego or ahankara, there is problem of karma. And because of karma, there is problem of punyam and papam. Because of punyam and papam, there is janma. Therefore, we call it as a fall. In the case of Ishvara, the birth takes place because of his sarvagnatvam, omniscience, because of knowledge alone. Bhagavan chooses to appear on earth to do what he has to do. Since Ishvara Avatara is because of Janma, knowledge, it is called descent. Avatara is coming down out of compassion. In the next slide, we see the second one, Swarupa Bheda. The nature of Manushya Janma and Ishvara Avatara are different. Since Jiva Janma is because of ignorance, it continues to be a samsari. He is a bound person born with sorrow. Therefore, Janma is samsara. Since Ishvara Avatara is out of knowledge, Avatara is Nitya Mukta Swarupa. So Jiva is samsari and Avatara is asamsari. Jiva is Bhautika Shariram, Maya to Panchabhutas to Shariram. Avatara Shariram is Mayika Shariram, means Maya to physical body directly. The third one, the next one is Uddesha Karya Bheda. The purpose of Manushya Janma and Ishvara Janma Avatara are different. Jiva is born purely to exhaust the punyam and papam which have been acquired in the past. Prarabdha can be exhausted only by Sukha Dukkha Anubhava. Ishvara is Papa Punya Atitaha. So the avatara is not meant for Punya Papa Kshaya. Then what is the purpose of avatara? Krishna tells us, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Ishvara Avatara purpose is protection of Dharma and destruction of adharma by protecting the dharmic people and by destroying the adharmic people. So the purpose is Dharma Rakshanam or Shishta Rakshanam, to protect, to bless the world, Loka Sangraham. When we look at the various avatars, as in the next slide, it entails destruction of the wicked and protection of the good. They are like two sides of the same coin. In the process of killing the oppressor, the oppressed is protected. For example, in the Varaha Avatara, the Lord protected Mother Earth by killing the demon Hiranyaksha. In Narasimha Avatara, the Lord killed Hiranyakashipu to protect Prahalada and his creed. So is it with Krishna or Rama avatars, whether they are within the Dasha avatars or Mohini, Haigriva, etc., outside of it. Avatara can be a form suddenly becoming manifest to accomplish a single mission like Varaha and Narasimha, or it could be a seeming birth with a lifespan to accomplish multiple missions like Rama, Krishna, etc. The benefit directly from an avatara, we need to be present in that time frame and location. Else, it's only an indirect experience through the scriptures and Puranas. So what is it for us from this shloka in the here and now? Let me take the liberty of extending the avatara from macrocosm to microcosm. There exists good and evil within each one of us. There is a constant fight between the two. If we can make ourselves worthy of letting God manifest his avatara within our heart, he will demolish the evil and nurture the goodness and establish us on the path of righteousness, leading us to our ultimate goal of freedom from samsara. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Vasumati, for a nice explanation of this verse. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkrutam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. As you nicely gave us the distinction between all of us, the jiva and the avatara. After all, we are living in God's creation. And whenever things do not go okay, he will see how he can set the dharma in order. There is a little story of a father and a son, and the little boy was looking up at the sky and he asked his father, Papa, will the sky ever fall down? And the father says, never, it will never fall down. And the boy asked, Papa, what is that which is holding the sky up? He says, there are invisible pillars that are holding the sky from falling down. And the boy asks, what are those invisible pillars? And the father replies, there are so many good people in the world. It is all these silent good people in the world are the ones who prevent the sky from falling down. If all of us do our swadharma, then we will be able to maintain dharma in the world. Maintenance of dharma is not only God's work, it is our role that each of us, through our karma, to maintain dharma. We will go to the most central verse of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is central not only to the 4th chapter, but to the entire Bhagavad Gita. And Colonel Vijayan will exclaim this. Colonel Vijayan, sir.
Hari Om, sir. Karmanya akarmaya pashed, akarmani cha karmaya, sa bhuttiman manusheshu, sa yukta krishna karma kritaha. He who sees actionless of the self in the action of the body, and he who sees potential action in the inaction of the body is wise among men. He is yogi who has accomplished everything. Next slide, please. From the 18th verse up to the 24th verse, Krishna deals with knowledge, which is a solution to all human problems. And this portion is the main topic of the 4th chapter. In this portion, Krishna condenses the teachings of all Upanishads. And of all the verses, 18th is a key verse wherein Krishna talks about Atma Anatma Viveka. Krishna wants to highlight one aspect of the Atma here, that is Atma as a karta. It does not perform any action in itself. The consciousness principle of Atma, being all pervasive like space, it cannot do any action. Hence, the first lesson that Krishna wants to emphasize in this verse is that Atma, the awareness principle, is ever actionless. It is free from karma. Then the second lesson that Krishna wants to give is that the body-mind complex, the anatma, can never be free from action. It is eternally in motion. And when you see anatma is in rest, there is motion in the potential form. Therefore, the wisdom is accepting actions at anatma level and own up actionlessness or permanent rest at the atma level. Now, coming to the verse, karmanye akarmana ya pashed. A wise person sees actionlessness of the atma, the permanent peace of the atma. And when karmani, even when there are actions at the anatma level, Jnani sees actionlessness at the level of atma and action at the level of anatma. Example, a hand waving in an illuminated room. The hand, the anatma in action, while the light is the atma witnessing the action. Next, akarmani ya karma pashed. The wise person sees action in inaction. Here, what Krishna wants to convey, when the body-mind complex appears to be resting, either during sleep or any other time of the day, it seems that the anatma is actionless. But there are actions in the potential form. Karma means potential action. Next slide, please. Where akarmani in the actionlessness of the body-mind complex. Example, all actions one plans to do the following day after one gets up from sleep are potential actions. Sa buddhiman, shifting of the I from the inferior I, the ego, to the superior I, the Atma, is called Vishnu. Anyone who can achieve this is Buddhiman Manushya. Sa Yuktaha, a Jnani who can put akarma or the ego in its place and not be enslaved by it is a yogi, a master. Sa Krishna Karma Kratha, he is accomplished person. He does not seek Purnatvam in the lower self because he knows that he is Purna in the higher self. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Colonel Vijayan, for a very clear explanation, but of a certainly difficult verse because you have this words action, inaction coming together. But Krishna gives a stimulus for us to understand. He says, those who have understood this is the highest learning ever. I would like to share this very famous Buddhist sutra, which goes like this. My doctrine is to think of the thought that is unthinkable, to practice a deed that is not doing, to speak the speech that is inexpressible, and to be trained in a discipline which is beyond discipline. Here, Buddha has brought out what in Vedanta also we talk of. Action can be at three levels. It can be kaya, vacha, manasa. Manasa is from the mind, kaya means from the body, vacha from the speech. And this sutra is saying how at all three levels, how I can bring in action. For example, manasa. My doctrine is to think the thought that is unthinkable. The only thought that is unthinkable is to have no thoughts, to be able to see a situation as it is without bringing in thoughts. I can see a flower, but bring in a lot of associations with a flower. But if I'm able to see a flower, if I'm able to see a tree, if I'm able to see a man, without bringing any thoughts, that is to think the thought that is unthinkable. to practice the deed that is not doing. This is the crux of inaction in action. Whenever I do any action, there is a tendency to prove something to somebody. And then there is this word that is used in Vedanta, which is not strictly an English word, called the doership. There is a sense of I am doing it, I'm trying to prove something. Whenever there is the doer, there is the ego, then it becomes a problem. So Buddha is saying, can you practice the deed that is not doing? That means, can you be a facilitator? Can you allow things to happen without a sense of I am doing it? To speak the speech that is inexpressible is to bring in silence as much as possible and to communicate in a non-verbal manner. In that way, we'll be trained to bring in as little effort as possible. This whole thought of inaction and action has started in the second chapter and it culminates in the fourth chapter. It is touched a little in the fifth chapter also. And you will see the last teaching verse, the Charama Shloka, Sarva Dharman Parityagya, is also talking about inaction in action itself. In the second chapter, this particular beautiful verse which says, Buddhi yukto jahatiha ube sukrute dushkrute tasmad yoga ya yujjasya yogaha karmashu kaushalam. What is this skill in action? Normally, whenever you do any action, you incur either punya or papa. And when there is punya or papa, you are bound by the punya, you are bound by the papa. When I do not bring my sense of doership, when I am not there, when I allow things to happen, this is the highest Jnana karma sanyasa, how a jnani would do a karma. And in that way, you will be able to convert a binding karma into a liberating karma. This is what is called the law of least effort, or sahaja. Sahaja means in the most natural state. We can learn from nature. Nature functions with effortless ease. For example, grass grows, fish swim, birds fly. You don't see an effort in theirs. Like flowers bloom, the earth spins, the sun shines. So the whole Vedantic wisdom is do less, accomplish more. And you will see that in a Buddha or in a Ramana, the actionlessness of a Buddha or a Ramana speaks of their proximity to Atma, and they are manifesting their Atmatva nature in their actions, in their inaction. So ultimately, what is this wisdom of Jnana Karma Sannyasa is to shift from doership to be a facilitator. As nicely explained by Colonel Vijayan, there are two aspects in all of us. The Anatma, body-mind, is always in action. The Atma in me cannot do any action because it is infinite. When something is infinite, it is all pervading. To do any action, whether it is thought, word, or deed, requires a certain amount of movement. When no movement is possible, no action is possible. So therefore, anchor in the Paramarthika Atma in you whenever you are into the world of Vyavahara. And that is the message of the pinnacle of Jnana Karma Sannyasa in this particular verse. Nilima will explain another very related verse of what is that which motivates a jnani to work. Over to you, Nilima.
Yasya sarve samarambah kama sankalpa varjitaah jnanagnidagdha karmanam tamahu panditam buddhaah. He whose actions are all free from desires and fancies, and whose actions are burned by the fire of knowledge, sages call him wise. Jnani's mind continuously revel in divine, where his ignorance has ended with the cognition of truth, which in turn leads to end of all desire-prompted actions and attachment to their end results. This verse discusses about once Jnani has discovered Purnatvam, will there be any motivation to do any work? In general, there is a misconception among the people that discontentment alone leads to work and accomplishment. But truth is that true service comes only when there is a fullness and contentment. And this compassion is the intrinsic nature of Jnani, like the heat and light of the sun. Just like mother's compassion for child gets crystallized into an appropriate action. Similarly, Jnani is as active as an Agnani according to the needs of the society. We get to see this in the selfless love of the mother for her child. So is Jnani's love for the world. Jnani is firmly rooted in self acceptance, which in turn expresses as world acceptance, just like a mirror, which accepts, reflects everything, and at the same time neither rejects nor retains anything. So too, Jnani remains akarta, untouched while performing all karmas. Jnani firmly rooted in this higher state of Paramatma Satta, Purnatvam. He does not mix with lower level of Vyavaharika state. He discriminates clearly that world is like a dream, like a mirage in desert or silver in a shell, and his conviction that world is just a projection on Brahma, like snake on rope. Having no selfish end, he becomes Kama Sankalpa Vajita. He has no crystallized ahankara, so no selfish desires are born out of him. Even while Gnani performs kindly acts in the community, still he does no action due to the absence of kartabhav. Since all his actions are burnt in the fire of knowledge, jnana dagda karmani. So, Jnani has no agami karma, as no karta, hence no papa punya are generated. Just as a roasted seed cannot sprout, so too Jnani's karmas, having burnt in the fire of knowledge, cannot bind him into samsara. Such Jnanis are called Pandita, who are endowed with the self-knowledge by vice. We can see this happening in the lives of many saints who have dedicated their lives in the service of humanity. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you, Nilima, for a nice explanation. The question here is, once a person attains to Purnatvam, once a person attains to the highest fulfillment, what is the motivation for them to work? Normally, we feel that to accomplish something, you have to be driven. Here are people who have all that forms, Jnanam has burnt all the sankalpa, all their desires. And when that has happened, what is that which really drives them? There is another related verse in the third chapter. Third chapter, there are some very beautiful verses, which one of them is like this. Naiva tasya kritartena na akritena kaschana. That means a jnani is not attached to action, a jnani is not attached to inaction, because he has attained to purnatvam. He is so fulfilled, and therefore there is no that kind of a drive that others have. A jnani has attained to, once you have reached your home, once you have done everything that you could possibly get, you attain to a state where you can say nothing to do, nowhere to go, because I have reached my home. This is Swami Vidyaranya, an enlightened master, a jnani, who is the author of Panchadashi. Chapter 7 of Panchadashi is called Tripti Deepa Prakaranam, where this Jnani has written 298 verses. This is the longest chapter of Panchadashi. And in this long chapter of Panchadashi, his whole entire chapter is based on one line of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. You can see the entire depth. And this verse of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad goes like this. Atmanam che vijaniyat ayam asmiti purushaha kimmichan kasya kamaya shariram anusandayate, which means once the person knows very clearly, aparokshata jnanam, he clearly knows who is this Purushaha, who is his higher self. Kim Michan, what desire, what is that which drives him to accomplish? Why does he have to struggle with this body for such a person? This is the question that is asked, and he dwells 298 verses. Now, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where from the lowest needs, which is physiological needs like air, water, food, shelter, clothing, to a little higher needs of personal security, employment. Even higher need, Maslow says, is the need for love and belonging. And as the higher needs come, the lower needs become less and less. When there is a need for self-esteem, for status, for recognition. And the highest, he says, is the level of self-actualization. Even in the school of yoga, they talk of the 7 chakras, which are the driving forces for us to do whatever we do. The lower 3 chakras are the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, and Manipura, which are respectively for the drive. The lower chakras are for the sexual drive. The sexual drive is a very, very strong drive for accomplishment. The Swadhisthana is driven by insecurity. I am able bodied today, but if I become disabled for any reason, there is a sense of insecurity. Let me earn money. Let me save a lot of money so that I will be secure when, in case something happens to my body. Then at the level of the Manipura, there is the need to dominate. There is the need to control. Now, these are the lower drives. Once a person comes to anahata, that is the heart center, when love flowers. And this is the beginning from love to the highest sahasrar, which is compassion that you see in a jnani. In Vishuddhi, there is purity. In Agnya, there is internalized of wisdom. In sahasrar, when a person becomes fully bloomed, true service, according to Sri Krishna, is when a person is Purna. Now there is no selfish motive at all. Now the only motive is compassion, because now you identify yourself with everybody else. And when you are working out of compassion, there is no sense of doership. You are now like a roasted seed which does not germinate any further punya or papa. And this roasting has happened through the fire of jnanam. There is a very beautiful verse which we chant, particularly during every time we have food, from the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter. Viksha, will you explain this to us?
Thank you, Doctor. I'll start this verse by chanting Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahmakarma Samadhina. In the second chapter, Lord Krishna deals with the essence of Jnana Yoga in these important verses, beginning from the 18th verse up to the 24th verse. And in the 24th verse, the Lord is concluding the Jnana Yoga topic, and he talks about the highest level of Upanishadic teaching. To start off with, there are basically 3 levels of Upanishadic teaching. The first level is recognizing the fact that consciousness principle is separate from the body-mind complex. Just as electricity is a principle different from the bulb, it is a principle that pervades and blesses the bulb. In the same way, consciousness is a separate entity which blesses the perishable body-mind complex. And that consciousness principle, I am. And I am not the body-mind complex. The body-mind complex is only an incidental medium through which I transact. And in the absence of body-mind complex, I will stop my transactions, but I will not stop to be existing. Thus, existence does not require body-mind complex, but transaction requires this. Therefore, I am the consciousness principle. This is the first level of learning. In the next level, this I, which is the consciousness principle, is the same behind all the body-mind complex. Just as there is one thread behind all the beads of a necklace, and there is one space contained in all different containers, similarly, there is only one consciousness enclosed within all of us. The enclosures are many, the containers are many, but the content is one. Thus, I, the consciousness, am the same behind everybody. In short, from the standpoint of consciousness, we are all one, Atma Ekatvam. This is the second level of learning. In the third and the final level, which is the most important teaching, is that this I, which is the consciousness behind all the bodies and minds, alone is the ultimate truth and the essence of this creation, the body-mind complex, and the external world, which does not exist independent of consciousness. Thus, consciousness is Satyam, and the body-mind complex, along with the world, is Mithya. And to understand this teaching, the Upanishad uses a particular methodology of teaching. This method is consciousness alone is the cause, and everything else is a product of this consciousness principle alone. Thus, Atma is the Karanam and Anatma is the Karyam. Just as there is no ornament separate from gold, once I have understood gold is the essence, I will continue to see the variety of ornaments. But I will know that gold is, which is inherent in all of them, is one. In the next slide, 6 components of yajna have been spoken about in this verse. The act of yajna is Brahman. The ladle or the wooden spoon with which the oblation is offered is also Brahman. Brahma Havir, which are the oblations or the offerings or the ghee, is also Brahman. Brahmagna, which is the fire in which the oblation is offered, is also Brahman. The one who is offering the oblation, who is the priest, he also is Brahman. Brahmanahutam. As a result of this religious ritual, the Upanishad or the Vedanta or the Vedas promises Swargalokam as the phalam. Lastly, Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. The Gnani who is absorbed in this Brahmanishta, only he will attain Brahman. This is called Sarvatra Brahma Darshanam. Hence, there is only one Brahman, all others are in different names and forms alone. This particular verse is also chanted before eating food. Therefore, to conclude, Brahman is the oblation, Brahman is the offering, the fire is Brahman, the one who offers the oblation is also Brahman. One whose actions happen while absorbed in Brahman, he alone attains Brahma. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Viksha, for a very nice explanation of a very difficult Upanishadic verse that we chant every time we have food. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. At least 3 times a day we sit to eat food, and it is our tradition that before we eat, we chant this particular mantra. However, Swami Paramarthananda ji says it is a wrong thing that we are saying this before food, because it should be said all the time. Because this message really is it, to be able to see, to make a shift from I have consciousness to I am consciousness, and that sarvatra ekatma darshanam. Everything that I see and experience is Brahman. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam. Brahman is reached only by that person who Brahma karma samadhinaha. That means we will begin by chanting this mantra each time we eat religiously. But later on, let us train ourselves to see this Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Everything that I see and experience. There is a nice verse in the Kena Upanishad which says, Prati Bodha Viditam Matam. In every experience can I come in touch with the experiencer. This is where these Gita and Upanishadic verses should come into our everyday action. We come to perhaps the last verse today, where we will, our second last verse today by Smita Pai will tell us about the role of the teacher. Over to you, Smita.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Lord Krishna talks about the glory of knowledge, beginning from verse 25 to verse 33. Verse 33 explains that Jnana Yajna is the most important yajna which helps us to gain liberation. In verse 34, Lord Krishna gives a means of acquiring this knowledge. This verse describes about the significance of the spiritual guide called Guru. The necessity of a Guru, the qualification of a Guru, also called as Guru Lakshanam, the attitude to approach a Guru, consistent and systematic teaching by a Guru. The verse begins like this: Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnana jnanina tattva darshinaha. Lord Krishna points out Jnana Yajna cannot be practiced independently by a seeker or a person. It requires an external guidance, and the guidance is of twofold. Two things are required. One is Shastra or scriptures or Shastra Darpanam. Second thing, what we require is to operate this Shastra Darpanam, that is the verbal mirror. The words of the scriptures are capable of revealing our nature to ourselves. Now, it is not enough that we have Shastra Darpana. We should also know how to use it. And Guru, the spiritual guide, is the only one who helps us to use this Shastra Darpana properly. And he presents in such a way, even if there is a dust or wrong, a dust or doubt in the mirror, in the form of wrong understanding, he clears the doubts and presents the mirror properly so that one can gain self-knowledge. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, one requires a guru, and what kind of a guru? Who is Shrotriya Brahmanishta. Brahmanishta means the one who has a knowledge. Shrotriya means one who has a skill of communication or imparting the knowledge effectively with conviction. Lord Krishna is paraphrasing this as Jnaninaha Tattvadarshinaha. Tattvadarshinaha means Brahmanishta, one who has a complete subjective experience of the infinite reality. Therefore, a guru should be a Jnaninaha and Tattvadarshinaha, must be able to impart the knowledge of the self. And when Jnanam is communicated to us, we should also be qualified to receive the Jnanam. Next, Lord Krishna emphasizes two important qualifications for the seeker. They are Jijnasa, that is thirst for the inquiry for acquiring knowledge, and Vinaya, humility enough to accept our ignorance. Having approached the Guru, how should one express their humility? It is by physical prostration, that is pranipatena, that is totally falling at the feet of the Guru. Next, Lord Krishna says, Tadviddi. You learn systematically from the teaching Guru, learn clarifying doubts at regular intervals, that is pariprashnena. And next comes Sevaya, means service or rendering service. Seekers should continue building a relationship with the Guru by serving him. This will build a better connection or rapport and tuning between the teacher and the student. To sum it up, may you know that knowledge of self through prostration, inquiry, and service, and the wise ones who have realized the truth will impart the knowledge to you. In other words, pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya tattvadarshinaha jnaninaha jnanam te upadekshanti tadviddi. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Smita Pai, for a very nice explanation of this particular verse. Tatviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadesha shaktiti jnanam jnanina tattvadarshinaha. In order to pursue jnana, we need two things. We need the Shastra and the Guru. We need to know ourselves. To know ourselves as the body, we use the mirror. And scriptures, as Smita has explained, are like mirrors. And the Guru is the one who teaches us how to use this mirror properly. And the teacher should be one who is anchored in the truth and has the ability to communicate. Similarly, the qualities of a student have been very nicely explained. We come to the last Gita verse today, which will be explained to us by Meenakshi. Over to you, Meenakshi, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, verse 37. Yathai se samidhognihi bhasmasat kuruterjuna gnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. Meaning, O Arjuna, the fire of knowledge reduces all karmas to ashes, just as a well-kindled fire reduces the fuel or wood to ashes. In this verse, Sri Krishna continues to elaborate on Jnana Phalam topic, that is, the benefits attached to self-knowledge or wisdom. In the earlier verses, he explains benefits of Mohanasha or destruction of attachments, Ishvara Aikyam, oneness with God, and Papanasha. Here, he explains how all the karmas or karma phalam will be destroyed and reduced to ashes on gaining self-knowledge or gnanam. Karma phalam means all types of karmas, that is, Sanchita, Prarabdha and Agami. Sanchita is punya and papa acquired in past janmas. Prarabdha is nothing but that portion of the past which is ready to fructify, and Agami is karmas which we acquire through present janma. These put together are responsible for Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam cyclic process. Here, in case of a Gnani, Krishna says Sanchita is destroyed, Agami is avoided, and Prarabdha is exhausted. Though Prarabdha produces results, a person who is a realized soul, a Gnani, sees all the actions with a samabhava or equanimity. He is no longer tempted or lured by worldly attractions. He becomes free from the results of all actions connected with past, present, or future. Krishna is thus assuring Arjuna that knowledge has the power to burn our karmas in this lifetime itself. To convey this, as we see in the slide, the Lord gives an example in the shloka. Agnihi yathaidhamsi bhasmat kurute, which means just as a well-kindled fire reduces or burns down all types of fuel or logs of wood to ashes, in the same way, Gnana Agni, the well-kindled fire of knowledge, Sarva Karmani Bhasmat Kurute, destroys all the karmas. Here, wood is compared to our karmas and blazing fire to knowledge. Gnanagnihi can be defined as the inner natural will aspiring constantly for higher knowledge which is received from Guru and Shastras. Coming to the next slide, Gnana has the power to understand the ultimate reality, Satyam, Gnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Therefore, Gnanam is the most powerful fire which destroys all vasanas or karmas. This ignorance is removed just as darkness is dispelled by light. The fire of knowledge burns all unwelcome experiences, leaves no trauma behind. Such a person totally becomes stable. He is like a man standing on the bank of a river, seeing his reflection in the water, knowing very well that he is not in the water. The results of past actions do not touch him, even as dewdrops slide off the lotus leaf. The analogy of the droplet of water illustrates this distancing attitude. A gnani is endowed with this virtue. As we see in the next slide, further elaborating, Krishna means sarva karma nivritti, which includes papa karma and punya karma. Both punyam and papam fall under samsara. To exhaust both, a person has to take rebirth. According to Vedanta, papam gives immediate sorrow and punyam gives later sorrow. The Mundaka Upanishad declares that a gnani goes beyond papa and punya, avoiding the cyclic process of rebirth. The mine of sin, the ocean of doubts, and the mountain of temptation will all sink to insignificance before this luster of wisdom. The prowess of wisdom is thus incomparable. High character means a tremendous blazing fire of gnana within. To quote an example, Gandhiji had this gnana. So also all great spiritual teachers. This is how the idea of gnana as fire is very much expounded and praised in this section of the Bhagavad Gita. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Meenakshi, for a very clear explanation of this particular verse about a well-kindled fire which can destroy all our karmas. We know there are various kinds of karmas. Particularly, there is something called the Sanchita karma. The Sanchita karma, we have no access to it, but we know we have lived a lot of lives, which we call like the cloud data. So there are innumerable amount of punyas and papas, and unless that is dealt with, we will have punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. It is said in this particular verse very clearly, just like radiation energy has the ability to destroy cancer cells, so too the fire of spiritual knowledge has the ability to destroy all our Sanchita karmas, all our sanchita karmas. In addition, because of spiritual wisdom, a person does not incur any other current karmas in this particular life. So there is this prarabdha karma. A jnani has to go through prarabdha. But however, the spiritual knowledge now insulates the jnani because now he sees himself so purna, he identifies his higher self. So whatever affects his lower self does not affect him at all. Uh, I would like to quote about the great Sufi poet Jalaluddin Rumi, who had said this particular words, which is so much as in Vedanta. He says, these three words contain my whole life. He says, I was raw, now I am cooked and burnt. Cooked and burnt in the sense that as far as a person does not germinate any further punya or papa in his actions in his present life, also with our understanding, Jalaluddin Rumi is also known for whirling uncontrollably the day he became realized. And he would transmit this understanding to his followers by knocking off the mind, because the mind is the one that comes between you and the Atma. And they would do it in the form of a Sufi whirl. And this verse, the 17th verse, another very beautiful verse of the third chapter, which says, Yastu atmarati reva syad atmatriptasya manava. That person who's so full of himself, atmanevaha santushta, tasya karyamnya vidyate. So such a person is so purna, there is no punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, because there is nothing left in him to continue this particular cycle. The energy of jnanam has burnt all the karmas. We have finished the 6 verses. We are taking one particular verse. We have a very beautiful Saraswati mantra, which Aruna will explain to us. Aruna, please.
Hari Om. Ya kundendu tusharahara ya shubhra vastravrita, ya veena varadanda manditakara, ya shveta padmasana, ya brahmachuta shankara prabhritibhe devai sada pujita, samam patu saraswati bhagavati Nihisheshajaryapaha. This is the famous Saraswati Vandana sung by students in search of any kind of knowledge. This has been composed by one of the Saptarshis, Agastya Muni, who crossed the Vindhyas and settled down in southern India. Ma Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge, art, music, wisdom, learning, speech. And the name Saraswati is derived from the Sanskrit saras, which means essence, and swa, that is oneself, and ti means that one. She is associated with flowing water, a river, which is a symbol of knowledge. She represents intelligence, consciousness, cosmic knowledge, creativity, education, enlightenment, the arts, eloquence, speech, and not only academic but also divine knowledge. Ma Saraswati is known as the mother of the Vedas, Veda Mata. The Rig Veda mentions her first. She, Ma Saraswati, is the consort of Brahma, the feminine energy and knowledge aspect of Brahma. And she is also one of the many aspects of Adi Shakti. Now let us look at these, at the Vandana line by line. Ya kundendu tushara hara dhavala, ya shubhra vastra vrita. Salutations to her, who, meaning Ma Saraswati, who is pure white like jasmine, kunda, with the coolness of the moon, Indu, the brightness of tushar, snow or dew, with a shine like a garland of pearls or crystals, hara dhavala. She who is covered with pure white, beautiful clothes, Shubhra Vastravrita. So she is depicted as a beautiful woman in pure white and always associated with white, which signifies the purity of true knowledge. She whose hands are holding a veena, Ya Veena Varadanda Manditakara. Saraswati, the goddess Saraswati is generally shown with four arms. This has got various interpretations. It can mean 4 aspects of human personality in learning, that is, the mind, intellect, alertness, and ego. Mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Another interpretation is that the 4 arms represent the 4 Vedas. The Vedas in turn represent 3 forms of literature: prose, poetry, and music. The book in her hand, in the left hand, signifies the Vedas, which represent the universal, divine, eternal, and true knowledge, as well as that of science and scriptures. The veena in the hands in the front represents all knowledge of science, of music, and all arts and sciences. The mala or the rosary, which is in the rear hand, is a symbol of inner reflection or meditation. Ya Shweta Padmasana. The goddess is seated on a white lotus, Shweta Padmasana. The lotus is a very sacred, special representation of purity as it comes out of dirty, murky water. So, Ma Saraswati is founded in the experience of absolute truth. Ya Brahma Achyuta Shankara, the Holy Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Achyuta, Vishnu, and Shankara, and all the other Devatas surround and respect her always, Sada Pujita. To that mother, Samam, protect me, Patu, Saraswati Bhagavati, Goddess Saraswati, without any remnant, Nihashesha Jadyapaha, remove lethargy. In other words, may she remove fully my lethargy, sluggishness, and ignorance, because she transcends the cravings of the flesh and rejoices in the powers of the mind as a patron of pure wisdom. She, Ma Saraswati, embodies all that is pure and sublime in nature. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna, for a very nice explanation of this very popular verse with adoration to Goddess Saraswati. And now we have a much clearer meaning of this particular verse. All of us know this particular verse in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Of the thousands and thousands of people in this world, how few of us have been so blessed by Goddess Saraswati. If we have not had this blessing of Goddess Saraswati, we would not be in this class, we would not be listening to these verses of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So we are very grateful to Goddess Saraswati for giving us this blessing, for bringing us till here. But watch the next line. Yatatam api siddhanam kaschin ma vitti tattvata. This is where we need the blessings. We have come till here, but Sri Krishna says, very few of us put consistent efforts till we have reached Purnatvam, till we have reached not only Jnanam, till we have become Jnana Nishta, from Prajna to Sthita Prajna. And that is why we need the blessings of Goddess Saraswati in our journey of spiritual understanding. We will conclude today's class with a story meditation, which is in a continuation of the story that I said in the last class. In the last class, I had mentioned a story which was shared to us by Swami Sarvapriyananda about how he would go to one of his teachers, a senior monk of the Ramakrishna ashram, whenever he had any doubt about any aspect of Vedanta. And this senior teacher had the ability to clarify all these, and Swamiji would come back with his doubts cleared. And one day he goes to him with some doubt, and the senior person, who was now unwell with an oxygen mask, removes the oxygen mask, thinks for a long time, flashes a beautiful smile and says, I'm sorry, I'm just not able to remember. My mind is not functioning. But he has no regret at all. And without a tinge of regret, he says, but there is no problem. This body-mind has served its purpose. What is the purpose of our existence? We are so lucky to be born human beings, but each of us have a purpose which is absolutely unique. And the beauty is, purpose is something that has to be discovered. Nobody can give it to you. That is why I stopped here in the last class by not dwelling more on purpose. However, for students of the scriptures, particularly the students of the Upanishads will give us certain leads, certain clues, and it is up to us to work on this further. As I said, after we have studied the Bhagavad Gita, we go to the source book of the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads. And the source book of the Gita, as we've had in the Dhyana Shloka, Sarvopanishado Ghavo Dogda Gopala Nandana. Shri Krishna has milked from the Upanishads. And of all the Upanishads, one Upanishad where he has taken most of the verses from is the Kathopanishad. The Kathopanishad is a story of a little boy, Nachiketa, an ardent student who gets an opportunity to meet none other than Yamadharmaraja. And it so happened that he had to wait 3 days to meet him. And because he had kept him waiting for 3 days, the great Deva, Yamadharmaraja, gives him 3 boons. He says, ask whatever you want. And in this discussion of the 3 boons, we have some clues as to what are we primarily here for? What are the rinas? What are we that we need to work on? And we need to work on 3 things. The first is called Pitrarina. No one has done more for us than our parents. And one thing which is very clear, it is impossible to repay to our parents what they have done for us. This debt remains essentially unfulfillable. But it is said that one of the greatest gifts that you can give to your parents is if someone can tell your parents how blessed they are that they have a son or a daughter like you fulfill Pitrarina. Whenever a person has extraordinary accomplishment, the question asked is, from where is he? Who are his parents? Which country he belongs to? So the first thing is, can we bring glory to our parents, glory to our alma mater, glory to our teachers? And that is what is called Pitrarina. The second, which is brought out in the discussion between Nachiketa, because first thing boon he asks is for his father's mental peace. Second thing he asks is, how can human beings attain to the heavens? And this is what is called Lokarina. Can I shift from being a consumer to being a contributor? In each of my working day, in each day of my life, from morning to evening, when I have an opportunity of a healthy body, can I see that I can do more to people around me, my family and the whole community, than I have received from others? And if I'm certain that I have been giving more than I have received, I fulfill the second debt, which is called Lokarina. The third is, and the most difficult debt, and that is what the whole Kathopanishad is all about. For that matter, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, is about Acharya Rina, where we are told our true nature, and our true nature is understood by the whole process of Jnana Yoga. To get Jnana Yogyata, to get Jnanam, and to get Jnana Nishta, which is the purpose of a human birth. We are here to attain to Parama Purushartha, and that is brought out in these 3 bones. Meditate on it and let us live our life on this particular story. We will conclude today's class by chanting. We have the speakers who already spoke today, Smita and Nilima, will chant the first 20 verses of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Over to you, Nilima and Smita, please.
Jai Gurudev. अथ पञ्चमोऽध्यायः कर्मसन्न्यासयोगः अर्जुन उवाच सन्न्यासं कर्मणां कृष्ण पुनर्योगं च शंससि यश्रेय एतयोरेकं तन्मे ब्रूहि सुनिश्चितम्
श्रीभगवानुवाच सन्न्यासः कर्मयोगश्च निःश्रेयसकरा उभौ तयोस्तु कर्मसन्न्यासात् कर्मयोगो विशिष्यते
ज्ञेयस्य नित्यसन्न्यासी यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते
सांख्ययोगौ पृथक् बालाः प्रवदन्ति न पण्डिताः एकमप्यासितः सम्यग् उभयोर्विन्दते फलम्
यत्साङ्ख्ये प्राप्यते स्थानं तद्योगैरपि गम्यते एकं सांख्यं च योगं च यः पश्यति स पश्यति।
सन्न्यासस्तु महाबाहो दुःखमाप्तुमयोगतः योगयुक्तो मुनिर्ब्रह्म न चिरेणाधिगच्छति।
योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः सर्वभूतात्मभूतात्मा कुर्वन्नपि न लिप्यते।
नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् श्वसन्
प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन्।
ब्रह्माण्यादाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्बसा।
कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये।
युक्तः कर्मफलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्टिकीम् अयुक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते।
सर्वकर्माणि मनसा सन्न्यस्यास्ते सुखं वशी नवद्वारे पुरे देहि नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन्।
न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते।
नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः।
ज्ञानेन तु ततज्ज्ञानं येषां नाशितमात्मनः तेषाम् आदित्यवज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परम्।
तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानः तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिं ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः।
विद्या विनय संपन्ने ब्रह्मणि गविसस्तिनि शुनि चैव स्वपाके च पंडिता समदर्शिनः।
इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गः येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः।
न प्रहृष्यच्छेत प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य चाप्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढः ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम।
Thank you, Smita and Nilima, for a wonderful spirited chanting. Thank you, friends, for your focused attention. With this, we have come to the end of today's session. On Wednesday, that is day after tomorrow, 25th November, we will study some more shlokas. Let's meet on Wednesday evening, same time. Please log in before 6:45 p.m. local time. Let's conclude with Shanti Mantra now. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ओम्।